What's going on, guys? My name is Jaime Behar. I'm sure you guys have heard a ton about credit, whether it be credit repair, credit stacking, credit hacking, 0% interest credit cards. There's all kinds of stuff of information out there, and I'm gonna try and give you guys as much information of exactly what and how you can use credit to your advantage. Let me get straight into it. I recall I have done some crazy stuff in my life that have put me in positions that a lot of people would question and think. I think I kind of talked about this in the last YouTube video. You might want to check it out. Honestly, when you have so much information in you and you've studied so many things, when the opportunity comes, if you react and you take advantage, it could be very, very, very good. And that's basically what I did when the COVID crash happened, right? I think if a lot of you guys are into the stock market or investing, crypto, whatever, real estate, a lot of things started crashing in 2020. And I still remember, when I saw that happening, I was amazed. I felt like I was watching a movie. I was like, damn, everything just keeps dipping. It just keeps going lower and lower and lower. I'm like, when is this gonna stop? It literally felt like forever, but in hindsight, it was only I think a couple weeks. Everything just collapsed. And I remember when that was happening, as it was happening, I was like, you know what? It'd be really good if I had some extra money here. And at the time, I was broke. I did not have a lot of money. I was already in debt, and I wanted to invest so much money into this because I realized, I'm like, man, if I just invest even into a company like Apple, right? Apple was down 50%, I think. And I was like, I'll double my money. 10 grand, I'll make it into 20 grand, 100 grand, I'll make it into 200 grand, but I didn't have 10 grand. I for sure did not have 100 grand. So that I realized, I'm like, how can I get my hand on money? How can I get my hand on such a large amount of money? I had already maxed out my parents' line of credit. I did not have any cash on me. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know anybody who can trust me to lend me that type of money. What would be the only other way to be able to invest into this? And right away, the wheels just started spinning. I was like, credit. I'm like, what if I can borrow that money? So I had done so much homework on credit. You guys have no idea. I knew how to get personal credit cards. I knew about business credit cards, 0% interest credit cards. I knew about credit stacking. I knew about manufacturer spending. There was a whole bunch of other things. Some of you guys might not have heard of manufacturer spending, but if you don't really make a lot of money, it's actually a pretty good way to make some decent money in the meantime. I knew all these different bonus points that I can get from credit cards. There was just so many things, right? And everything just started pouring in. Everything that I learned from Warren Buffett started pouring in. And I was like, how can I make money with this? I'm like, there has to be a way here. And right away, I was like, I know exactly what to do. Don't do this. I do not recommend this. So at that moment, I was like, okay, what is the quickest and fastest way to put money from my credit cards into the stock market? So while everything was crashing, I was like, okay, I need to be able to maximize the amount of credit that I can pull. At the same time, if I'm gonna liquidate these cards, what is the fastest way to liquidate these cards, and what is the best way to liquidate the most amount of cards to be able to put in the most amount of money into the stock market? So luckily, I knew exactly how credit worked. I knew exactly how they track your points. So part of it is utilization rate, part of it is late payments, part of it is hard inquiries. There's a whole bunch of other things, right? And I was like, okay, I need to be very strategic on how I'm gonna pull this money before I actually pull it, so that I can maximize the amount of it again. I was like, so in order to pull the maximum amount, the first thing I have to do is get the maximum amount. The first thing that I did is I literally started increasing my limits on all my credit cards. I increased the limits on my cards, I increased the limits on my wife's cards. But before I actually did that, I had to make sure that all those pulls were gonna be soft pulls and not hard pulls. That's a whole other thing. The credit bureaus will track if you're getting any hard pulls. They show you your credit report. Every little thing kind of lowers your score. So I was trying to minimize as many things as possible to affect that. As soon as I did that and I was at a higher level, I understood. I'm like, okay, this is great and all this is good. I was like, okay, take it up another level. So I started applying for more cards. Luckily, I hadn't applied for cards in a long time at that time. And I applied for maybe, 3 to 5 cards under my name, another 3 to 5 cards under my wife's name. And I went from having, maybe 50 to 75K in total credit from both me and my wife to having a couple $100,000. And right away, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. And again, I had already done a lot of studying on the stock market, so I knew exactly kind of what to do. And I ended up liquidating the cards. I pulled all the money out and I threw it in the stock market. Initially, when I started, I was scared. I wanted to throw up. I was like, what am I doing? This can go really, really bad really quick. I already was indebted and I kept it safe at first. I put it into, Apple, Facebook, and TCL, Carnival, and Delta, and I don't know, all these different companies. Some of them that had a potential of 4x return, 2x return, 3x return, 10x return. Kind of diversified it a bit, just thinking hey, just in case things hit the fan and then the whole country blows up. I'm like, I'm gonna diversify, but obviously kind of made a switch. So now I know I didn't really break down exactly how I did that. All I told you guys is, hey, I got this money, I put it into the stock market. Kind of give you a couple tips. So let me break it down a little bit more. What people don't realize is there's so many different factors that really takes for your credit score to get added up, right? All those factors are weighted factors, and each of them have a bigger weight on your credit score than the others. An example, your credit utilization. What does that mean? That means the percentage of credit that you have should not be over 10%. The higher it is, the lower your score goes. I think there's about 5 or 6 categories, and that category alone marks up about 30% of your credit score. So everything else can be perfect, but if that utilization score is really high, your score will tank. So obviously I was aware of all these things, right? I had to be careful of what my utilization score was. I have to be careful what my utilization rate was, how many hard inquiries I had, with not having any late payments, how old my accounts had been, because obviously if I wasn't open a ton of accounts, that score was also gonna drop. I had to properly measure exactly how I was gonna pull all that money up, right? Because if it got affected, then my score was gonna tank. Regardless, I knew it was gonna happen. Like, I knew once I pulled the money out, my score was gonna tank, and sure enough, think about this. If I had $200,000 in available credit, personal credit, and I pulled it all out, that means my utilization score was like at 90%. 90%, that is ridiculous. Like, nobody should ever have that type of debt on their credit cards. But I was like, hey, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. There is no way I'm gonna miss this. This is kind of where I messed up. Is what I should have done is I should have actually pulled all that money through business 0% interest credit cards. I hadn't completely tuned my credit knowledge. Honestly, to this day, I've still learned things that I didn't even know at that time. If I would have pulled that money out of business credit cards, what people don't know is that when you owe money on a business credit card, you can have $100,000 in business credit and you can max out your card. It will not show up on your credit report, your personal credit report. What does that mean? That means if you have $50,000, $60,000 in personal credit, you have $100,000 in business credit, and that card is maxed out, as long as you keep paying it, right, and it just keeps rotating, your score is still gonna show a 750, 800, whatever it is, if everything's still good. That debt will not show on your personal credit score. It will show on your business score, but that's a whole different thing. And obviously at the time, that heavily affected me, because if my utilization score was at 90%, my score went from like a 750 to like a 580. Or something like that. It was bad. Think about that. Like, nobody was gonna sell me anything or try and loan me anything, is what I should say, with that type of score. I was not gonna be able to get a house. I was not gonna be able to get a car, or let alone apply for another credit card, right? That's why I had to make sure that since that was going to happen, that I could maximize the amount of credit that I had. You know, sure enough, my score tanked, couldn't do anything. It's a crazy move, I get it. And again, I do not recommend this, because that could have gone really bad. I'm telling you right now, I actually ended up going into crazier things of what I did with that money. I did not just put it in the stock market and just let it sit there. It could have gone really, really, really bad. I could have lost all that money. Luckily, I didn't. All right, so I just gave you guys 3 really good tips and things to keep in mind, which is A, ask for credit increases, try not to get hard pulls and go for soft pulls. And the third thing is to have a business entity. If you can get credit from that, obviously it's a lot better than personal. I got 2 more for you guys. Just hear me out. These are actually pretty good. A lot of people don't know about these. And the next one is basically, if you do get hard pulls, it's not the end of the world. It's actually, it has the lowest weighted scale on your credit score. But keep in mind that after 6 months, those hard inquiries don't count anymore. So if you pulled 5 credit cards 6 months ago and now you're at month 7, they might show on your credit report, but it's not being considered for your score. What does that mean? That means that your score is going to go up and you can apply for more cards. That's actually a good thing. And the next thing, which this one's actually really good, a lot of people don't know about this, is something called credit stacking. I've mentioned this multiple times, and I think I've even mentioned it on other videos, but credit stacking, believe it or not, like, you would probably not even guess why it's good or how it would be good, or that it's even possible, right? Most people will apply for a house, will apply for a car, and you're doing it one time right at that moment. Obviously, right? Most people can't afford 2 houses at once. Other people can't buy 2 cars at once either. But when it comes to credit cards, right, you're not gonna get indebted, right? But most people will apply for a card and then apply for another one maybe tomorrow, maybe in a week, maybe in a month. They're like, oh, I don't want to kind of push things. But honestly, it's actually better to push things. What does that mean? So credit stacking, essentially what it is if you, say for example, have never applied for any credit cards, no, right? Or maybe you have a ton of credit cards and you haven't applied for any in a while, right? Let's say you're in that situation and there's not a lot of hard inquiries and you can get away with applying for a few ones. You are far better off to apply for like 5 credit cards within the same hour than to buy them one a day for the next 5 days or 1 or 2 every week. Why? Remember what I mentioned about the hard inquiries? If you're getting a hard inquiry on every time you apply for a card and the credit bureaus are showing that, the banks are looking at that, right? If they see that you're applying for 5 accounts or 6 accounts in the prior 2 weeks, or even 2 or 3, they're gonna think like, okay, this person might be desperate. They're trying to get as much credit. They're probably gonna, do something reckless. Part of what they think. It just seems dangerous. It just seems out of the norm. So they probably won't allow you to get that card because you have too many inquiries, right? 2 inquiries is usually like the threshold of what they think is okay. But I mean, really, like you're gonna apply for 2 cards every 6 months? Come on, guys. Like, no, there's different ways. Credit stacking, and if you apply for, say, a Bank of America card, a Chase card, a Discover card, a Citi card, a Wells Fargo credit card, those are 5 simple credit cards that anybody can apply with. Some are more difficult than others. I'm not gonna deny that. Some are a lot simpler, like a Discover It card. But if your score is good and you have a good history and you have prior credit cards and you apply for all of them at the same time, you have a way better chance of getting them approved for all of them versus applying 1 a week. I'm telling you that right now. And you might not get approved for all of them. Hey, it might not actually happen, but you will get approved for more doing it that way than any other way. Now I understand, guys, this might sound crazy, right? Pulling all this money out, credit stacking. Look, this is not for everybody, and I do not recommend it because things could get ugly really, really quick. Luckily, I was somewhat calm, focused, had a lot of knowledge, and I was able to get out of the situation, right? I did not end up losing the money, and now I owe all these hundreds of thousands of dollars. At the same time, I was able to build another business where I was able to make money, so things worked out. But that is part of the advantage of living in a country like this, is that you can leverage debt, and people don't understand this. Like, if you can truly and understand debt, and till this day, again, I will repeat this, there's still more that I can learn when we're talking about corporate debt, lines of credit, equipment loans. There's all kinds of other stuff, right? If you know how to leverage that type of stuff, you could potentially, possibly make a lot of money. That's all it is. Rich people do this all the time. If this is something you want to do, I don't recommend you do it, but I would say look into it, right? We're all in different situations, and if you feel like it's a good opportunity, hey, sometimes we gotta take chances, although I don't recommend it. Thank you guys again for tuning into my channel. Again, my name is Jaime Behar. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my video. I will be back next week for more videos.